All right, we are back talking about the election, campaigning, a lot of aberrations, and a lot more to come in terms of what we've seen so far. I'm now joined by my two panelists, Michael Imhotep, host of the African History Network show in Detroit, Michigan, and Matt Manning. He is a civil rights attorney out of Corpus Christi, Texas. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, thanks for having us, Candace. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, I'm looking at the two guests, but I'm glad it's you two because I know that you guys can certainly fill the time you normally have to be. But I am not worried, Michael. I am not worried. I wanted to talk a little bit about what you thought, Michael, in terms of what the president has been doing right now. He's trying to save himself, we can say, in terms of what happened on June 27th, appearing on, a television show, doing a live press conference. What do you think about his progress or not progress so far?
Well, I think there's a concerted effort in the Democratic Party amongst the elitists, amongst donors, and I think corporate control media is involved in it to push Joe Biden out. Because when I watch MSNBC, for instance, none of them are saying what I said on this show on June 28th, 2024, that Joe Biden actually won the debate, in the fact checking from numerous news sources, including NBCnews.com, including CNN, Washington Post, New York Times, and Associated Press proved my point because I read all the fact checking from all 5 of those news sources that I just mentioned. When you look at the fact checking from CNN.com post debate called Trump made more than 30 false claims during CNN's presidential debate, far more than Biden. They actually talk about how Biden made at least 9 false claims. Donald Trump made over 30 false claims. So if you made documented 3 times as many false claims as Biden, how is all the focus on Biden and talking about he had a bad debate? What about Trump? Trump was even worse than Biden. What the narrative should be, and I can prove my point because proper documentation ends all conversation. What the narrative should be is that Joe Biden on his worst day beat Donald Trump on his best day in a policy debate dealing with facts and evidence, dealing with policies. Donald Trump overwhelmingly made false statements and did not answer the questions he was asked. Joe Biden, even though he did struggle in that interview with George Stephanopoulos, he said that he was exhausted and he was sick. But even though he did struggle, he did also try to answer the question. And when you look at the fact checking, overwhelmingly, the majority of his answers were pretty factual, even though he did make mistakes. So there's a concerted effort to push him out. And then, D.L. Hughley brought up something about the op-ed from George Clooney, who used to be on The Facts of Life with Tootie and was one of the worst Batmans in the history of the franchise. George Clooney did not mention Project 2025. And see, when you are a white, elitist, wealthy male, even though Project 2025 may be something bad and you may shed some white tears, you're not the focus, you're not the brunt of who they're going after. They're going after African Americans and Latinos. So there's a concerted effort here. We need to fight back and really get to the bottom of this.
You know what, Matt, Michael mentioned the two Georges, George Clooney and George Stephanopoulos. They both have made more than comments about, their lack of faith in the presidency, the president. What are your thoughts about how he has tried to recover over the past week and a half?
I think this is a much more nuanced conversation than I've heard, both just privately in mainstream media. And I say that to this extent. I mean, he's a lifelong statesman. It's, I'm sure, a very difficult thing to come to grips with the fact that he may be just at the time where it's appropriate for him to leave. And I would imagine that there are a lot of people who are kind of hedging their bet. They're afraid to step away from Joe Biden as the nominee because they're afraid of backlash from it. But I think the difficulty with this is that, this conversation is very often rooted in loyalty, and this is not about loyalty. The Democrats' messaging right now is basically we absolutely have to save democracy by making sure Joe Biden, or really somebody, is elected to defeat Donald Trump. And the issue with that is that there are pretty demonstrative pieces of evidence showing that Mr. Biden's mental acuity is at least reasonably questioned. And I think right now, Michael's talking about a concerted effort. I think that there might be a concerted effort, but I also think two things can be true at the same time. And the problem is we have seen demonstrably from Mr. Biden that there are at least reasonable questions about his mental acuity. And I think the problem is, when we look at the debate and the substantive stuff that Mr. Biden has discussed, I mean, there's no question that he's eminently qualified and considerably more qualified than Mr. Trump. But I think that kind of assumes that your average person is out there looking at that. They are not. They're looking at the pageantry, they're looking at the presentation, and they're looking at an older man who's had a number of gaffes, who is standing opposite, one of the most kind of problematic marketers of our time, right? That's what Donald Trump's whole kind of shtick is. So I say that to say the question really should be, what is the Democrats' duty to its base, and what is the Democrats' duty to the electorate in making sure they have the absolute best person to counter Donald Trump, particularly because that would be consonant with their messaging. All the messaging is we have to save democracy, we have to save democracy. And while that is true, I don't know that you necessarily accomplish that if you are digging your heels in and are not having honest conversations about whether Joe Biden is the person who should be the nominee. Now, as to the efforts that he's taking to try to regain some of that ground, I think he's doing what he has to do. I think the problem with that, though, is that it's unfortunately looking to some extent like it's defiance rather than duty. And I think that's really the question now is, have we transitioned beyond thank you for your service, we need to move somewhere else, or is he really the right person to be the nominee? And I think those are fair questions. I think people who are preparing to cast their ballot in November have every right to ask these questions because notwithstanding his qualifications, that's a seminal issue, particularly when you see Mr. Trump and the looming prospect of Project 2025 on the other side of the aisle. I mean, I think the Democrats are trying to toe the line between not being disrespectful and staying where they are. But I think the problem is strategically they're in a catch-22. I think if they get rid of Mr. Biden.
So you say it's a fair question to maybe ask about maybe some parts of his mental acuity. How do we get the answer? How do we get the fair answer to whether or not all is well?
Well, obviously, so the problem, the problem with the whole narrative here is that Joe Biden is put under a microscope, but people put a blindfold on when they did with Donald Trump. And the last time I checked, there were two front runners who were going to be the nominees. So one, as Joe Biden mentioned last night in his almost hour-long press conference with the press, peppering him with questions on foreign policy. I'm still waiting on Donald Trump to do the same thing. Donald Trump knows absolutely nothing about foreign policy except what Vladimir Putin tells him. Joe Biden said he takes a neurological test every year, and he took the last one in February. Where is Donald Trump's medical records? Joe Biden makes his medical records public, as far as my understanding. Where are Donald Trump's medical records? So every question that we ask about Joe Biden, you have to ask about Donald Trump, and corporate control media is giving Donald Trump a pass. When you I watched the interview with George Stephanopoulos. The most important part of that interview was at the end of the interview, George Stephanopoulos, who's the former White House communications director in the Bill Clinton administration, knows more about politics than most people in the media. He said they offered a one-on-one interview with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump declined. When the hell has Donald Trump declined a one-on-one interview that's going to be seen by millions of people? The man is a social media whore. The reason why he declined is because he knows as soon as he starts lying, George Stephanopoulos is going to fact-check him in real time, and he's going to walk away with his tail between his legs. That's why he declined. Where's Donald Trump's press conference on foreign policy? He can't talk about foreign policy. So when we have these questions about Joe Biden, you have to ask the same questions about Donald Trump, and corporate control media is giving Donald Trump a pass.
Matt, you started to answer the question before. Is that the solution? Everybody gets the same test, the same number of times, and everybody's information goes public.
Well, I mean, as an aside, I always think it's kind of a strange thing that as a public figure, we think we have some right to knowing your private medical information. But that's, I guess, neither here nor there. I mean, I guess, yeah, what you do is you put it on an even playing field and you say, here's Donald Trump's information, here's Joe Biden's information and let people, do with that what they may. And I want to be very clear. I'm not a Trump apologist. I'm absolutely not voting Republican. But I do think that we have to be honest about this. I think we're having these conversations as though it is problematic to ask these questions. But we're not only talking about somebody who would represent all of us. We're talking about the leader of the free world and, frankly, the most powerful individual in the entire world. I don't think it is a problem to be asking about a person's mental acuity. I think Michael's right. I think we're giving Trump a bunch of passes. But I think the reality is that this is not a fair game. If you want to win this game, you have to be strategic. And the problem is the Democrats are too late to replace him now. But there's some pretty clear evidence that Mr. Biden has lost a step. Whether he's lost a step to the extent that he can't be effective is, a question that stands to be answered by experts who have more expertise than I do. But that is the seminal question. And I think the Democrats are not really playing for wins right now. They look like they're scrambling. And I think that's hurting the electorate because it's eroding confidence in the voters. And here's the thing. The good thing is the polls show that it's still a very, very, very close race, which means those people on the margins are the people who have to be convinced. And that's where my concern would lie, is how do you get those truly undecided voters and those anti-Trump voters who may not like Biden but otherwise are not, completely on the board of Trump? How do you get them to come over and vote Democrat? And I don't know how you do that, but I think those are the questions that are looming right now.
So, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, number one, you have to message better. An article from NBCnews.com dealing with the Congressional Black Caucus, Representative Hakeem Jeffries. They said they have been asking the Biden for months to focus more on kitchen table issues, focus more on inflation, increasing wages, things of that nature, and focus less, even though it is important. Focus less on just talking about saving the democracy and abortion rights, women's reproductive rights. Even though that is important, you've got to elevate on the kitchen table issues. But the other thing that's very important, if Democrats want to win, stop tackling your own quarterback. Stop blocking your own field goals. I've never seen such scared, weak, punk-ass Democrats. And I'm neither Democrat nor Republican, but I sure as hell ain't stupid. But as Basil Michaels on MSNBC said, he's African-American, as he said a few days ago, he said one of the reasons why African Americans are apprehensive about the Democratic Party is because they oftentimes appear weak. When you look at Republicans, they are circling the wagon around a convicted felon, convicted on 34 felony counts in New York, found liable of sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll, found liable of committing fraud when it came to banks, and he has to pay a fine of about $454 million. They're all defending Donald Trump. Democrats should do the same thing with Joe Biden. Whether you like him or not, it's like, how are you out here jumping on TV saying he should step aside? We love him, but it's time for somebody new. 14 million people voted in the primaries already. Let me explain this. 14 million already voted in the primaries. They voted for Joe Biden. They didn't vote for none of these woke-ass Democrats who say it's time to hand it off to the next generation. If you want to pass the torch, you go take the goddamn torch. You got a whole group of privileged-ass people who think shit is supposed to be handed to them. You go take it. You work, you outrun them, you outwork them. You knock on more doors, you get more votes. Joe Biden said, if you want it, come take it from me at the convention. He has 3,896 delegates because he won in the primaries. It takes 1,976 for the nomination. Now come take it from him. I haven't seen such weak punk-ass nonsense. This makes no sense. You don't want to fight. You just want shit handed to you, okay? And then you turn it on your own and attacking probably the most successful president since Lyndon Baines Johnson. Mess around.
Michael, I'm going to put a bookmark in there. Let you have the last word. Appreciate that. I know that we will be back with you, certainly, talking more about this election campaign and Joe Biden. All right, we're going to take a little bit of a break. When we come back, some more news that's making headlines. Stay with us here on the Black Star Network.
Real quick, Michael, you had an announcement real quick. Go.
Yeah, join me Sunday, June 30th, 2024 for my new 10-week online course, Black Resistance Movements from the Haitian Revolution, U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, Black Power Movement, 1800 to 1968. Most importantly, we look at how we fought back against white supremacy and racism, the various ways we did that. Visit my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Register today, watch the class live or on demand. We'll see you in class. Thank you, Roland.
Thanks a bunch. And again, folks, we'll see y'all tomorrow from the Poor People's Mass Assembly here in the nation's capital.
Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Scroll down. We have my new Juneteenth lecture there. It's a 3-hour lecture. If you register for this class, you're going to get the Juneteenth lecture in digital download format, okay? But you can order it in DVD or digital download format. You can register for the first class I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. Understand the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Now, we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch these anytime. So even after the course is over with, you can still go back and watch the class, okay? A year from now, 2 years from now, you'll still have full access, and you can watch the class. This content is PG-13, so you can use this with your children. Okay, so it's not overly graphic. I don't do a lot of cursing or anything like that. And it's very visual. So there's articles that we reference, books that we reference. I show you usually the book references on the screen, so you don't have to buy any of the books if you don't want to. But register here. We're going to do a class introduction right now. I teach this at my online school, so you can register for this course. Click right here, register for full course at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We just posted a link here in the thread of the broadcast. You can also support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App and through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. That helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills. This is our official Cash App account, $ the AHN show, SHOW. When you go to it, it'll say Michael. There's some like 5 or 6 fake African History Network Cash App accounts out there that I have identified, like these right here. Oh, and you can click on a Cash App link right here. Here's our QR code. Okay. And then here's our link for PayPal as well. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, finance our Sunday night show, the African History Network show. I usually do that Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on our social media platforms as well. All right, we have to get out of here. Hopefully you learned a lot today. You can email me through the website if you have any questions, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll see you in class. Remember, right now is correct wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. And your understanding of politics is directly related to your understanding of history. Okay, so we'll see you in class. Listen to the African History Network show. And Wakanda, right now is correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next.